everybody, welcome back to Lounge Chair Reviews. So Lounge Chair Reviews is going to follow a format where I first describe what the series is about, and then I talk about what I like, what I don't like, things like that. So this is the first official Lounge Chair review that's not a top 10 list, or in my case, a top 6 list, I think. Let's talk about the Sookie Stackhouse series. No, not that, although we will get into that later. I want to talk about books 1 through 11. This review is spoiler-free. After this, I'll be posting a review that does actually contain spoilers. Let's talk about a series that was originally called The Southern Vampire Chronicles, which I personally think is a much better name. And it's the name of the series when I first discovered it years and years ago. As I said in my worst books review, I went to Borders and was looking for Anita Blake, didn't know the name of the series, described it, and the clerk mistakenly gave me the Southern Vampire Chronicles book 1. And I said, what the hell? And I read it and didn't like it at all. I hated Sookie. I didn't like Sookie, I didn't like Bill, I didn't like what was going on, so I quit the series. And it doesn't help that I fell massively in love with the Anita Blake series at the same time, so that probably influenced it a bit. A couple years later, a new show on HBO gets announced, and they do all that marketing with the True Blood, and I go, this sounds really familiar. So I look it up, and sure enough, I was like, I've read this book. I know what this is about. So I checked it out to see what Alan Ball was doing with it, and we are going to talk about that later because I have opinions. They're not great. About 2 months ago, I decided to reread the series and read it in order and actually read the whole series because a whole bunch of my friends were reading it, and I tend to read a lot of stuff that my friends aren't reading. So I thought, hey, let's give this a shot, and we'll see what happens and what I think about it. So let's deconstruct the series. The book series came out in 2001. That's when it started. And the first book was Dead Until Dark. And we're introduced to the main characters and the world, and it's not a great book at all. In fantasy, we need to talk about how worlds work, because each world has its own rules, even when it's based in our own. So the way that this world works is that Sookie, as far as she knows, is the only telepath. The way that the vampires work in this is that they can only come up when the sun has gone down, when full sunset has happened, and older ones can wake earlier than newer ones. They can drink synthetic blood, but real blood from a living source is the best, and it has to do with the life source and life energy that surrounds a lot of vampire mythos. Other creatures that exist, fairies, which is pretty cool. So Harris sticks to a lot of the tried and true supernatural and fantasy tropes that exist, and she changes them slightly to suit her own needs and creates a pretty cohesive world that is entirely believable and could actually be living right under our own noses. And that's good, because the series is set in actual Earth, actual time, like where we live. So that's very important to create a realistic world that's so close to plausible but yet fantasy. So she does it quite well. I'll give her that. Her world is interesting. Her world is fun. The general plot is that she hangs out with vampires, she works, she does errands for vampires, and she tries to make sure she has enough money to live, and she hangs out with her friends. Like, this is really not driven by anything. She's very Mary Sue. She's pretty, but she's not model gorgeous. And while Harris never goes out of her way to stress that, at the same time, it's very obvious. So it falls into the Mary Sue trope where these truly gorgeous guys that every woman wants fall all over her. Harris offsets this by making sure that the humans don't want Sookie, but she's so irresistible to the supernatural that it just is as tired as all the other Mary Sue tropes that are out there. I don't read books where the main character is blah. And while writing this review, writing my notes for it, I realized that that's the major problem I have with Sookie. And it's the major reason why I have a problem with this series. If that's your main character, if that's the only viewpoint you're getting, if that's the only lens through which you're reading the story, you have to like your main character. And you don't. Or I don't. I hate Bill. This is a huge reason why I hate the first couple books, is I don't like how he treats her. I don't like how he behaves in general. I don't like anything about him. And when you meet the other vampires are distant and cold, but they're not as distant and cold as Bill is. Like, this is his personality. And I don't like it. He treats her terribly. She takes it and thinks that he treats her wonderfully. It's a Twilight thing. It's a Bella Edward thing, you know, and I hate it. It's not as abusive as Twilight, but it's definitely up there in, oh my god, stop dating him, he's a dick. And when that's one of your other major characters and you don't like the main character and you don't like the love interest / other major character, you're gonna kind of sit here and be like, oh my god, when will this series end? Another thing I don't like about the series is how Harris tries to force mysteries. Originally, Harris set out to make mysteries where every book was going to be a new murder mystery, and it puts Sookie into situations where she comes off as a lot dumber than she really is or becomes later in the series. In the first couple of books, she's just kind of swept along and doesn't have a say, and there's nothing there. Like, Sookie doesn't have a life, she just has experiences. The last major reason why I don't like the first couple books is I hate ordered vampire societies. I grew up on Anne Rice. I love vampires who kind of just do what they do and they're policed by their friends and that's it, because for the most part that's what we're like. However, it does grow on me, and I think that's because it provides interesting conflict later in the series and becomes useful in ways that I wasn't expecting it to. I thought it was going to be rather arbitrary and more as a hindrance than anything else, but instead it becomes fully fleshed out and works quite well for the story in general and for the world. Book 4 happens and things change, and we lead into why I love the series.